Hello. I'm just going to start giggling because Pat has actually promised to try and make me giggle while I'm doing my super serious presenter. Hello and welcome to Super Profesh, Irish Pagan Interviews with Lora O'Brien. I'm here with Pat Booker today, a very good friend of mine, mostly through the internet, it must be said. We have met in person. We're not just, Pat does actually exist in real life, and so do I. And we have met in
Yeah, but we were so busy being shy and slightly awkward when we met in person. We were super nice to each other the whole time.
I know, anxiety buddies. We bonded in our social anxiety.
Awkwardness. Awkwardness attracts.
Yes, and before the drink started flowing, I was actually called home on family business. So we didn't even get that part of the evening in. But anyway, Pat has become a very dear friend of mine, actually, even if it is just in the internet lands for now. And
I'm going to claim you too.
I'm delighted to be doing these Irish Pagan interviews. And I have a feeling that this one might be a bit of crack. Oh, and for our American buddies, crack does not mean what you think it means. In Ireland, a bit of crack means fun, joy, laughter, banter, silliness. We're not talking drugs here, okay, just so you know. So this is the Irish Pagan School Super Profesh official channel with myself, Lora O'Brien, who is the co-founder, or one of the co-founders, with my partner John O'Sullivan. And we are here with Pat Booker, super giant face on screen. So Pat has been a practicing pagan in the north of Ireland for over 30 years, 20 of them solitary, which I would love to chat about actually, because that is an interesting slice of life in itself, I think. Moving from 20 years of solitary practice into the last 10 years in the insanity of the Irish pagan community, is now a member of OBOD, the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, and the Fellowship of Isis in Ireland, which is based in Clonegall Castle, for anybody who doesn't know. So I'm going to dive into question one, and I'm sure there'll be lots of chats besides the official question. But when and where did your interest in pagan / earth-based spirituality begin? And we'll talk in a bit about getting started or whatever, but we're just looking for your personal, like 30 years ago, where were you in your life and how the fuck did you get involved in paganism?
I think it was about 30 years ago I started to use the word pagan. But come on, you know what it's like. You're the weird kid living in the country, drifting around, very solitary, daydreaming around different bits of the land. And in all the different places, you have different daydreams, and it's all very, very real to you.
Yes. Daydreams, bunny quotes.
Yeah. You're very open to things. Yeah. At least I was. And my folks used to get weirded out. They thought I was a bit of a basket case because I would constantly be just getting up and wandering off, and there'd be bits of the, up the woods, down the shore, whatever. And they actually thought about getting me checked at one point because I would just constantly go getting myself lost from a really early age. And then you throw into the mix that my dad was an inspector of ancient monuments.
Right.
So it's a really handy job to have for the father of a prospective pagan.
So where did you grow up?
Northern Ireland, Newtonards. So County Down. But my dad was an Englishman, and my mum's family were Sicilian refugees. So Northern Ireland took in my mum's family, and my dad was posted here on national service. So they met and they married, and they bought 8 acres of stones and sheep shite and scrub and gorse. Wow. And that is the family estate.
Idyllic.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope that didn't sound sarcastic. That was genuine. This is my dream right there.
It wouldn't be idyllic to people who want to make a fortune out of land, but for people who want to live on land. Yeah, it's great. So you're a little kid dandering around the countryside, and your dad's coming back telling you stories about dolmens and passage graves. And in your school holidays, you're getting scooped into the car to come to work with dad and drive around ancient sites in Northern Ireland.
Wow.
I didn't know the word pagan. Well, actually I did, because some of my dad's mates at work were archaeologists, and they talked about pagans, but in a very dismissive way.
Yeah.
Like, look at those flipping weirdos.
Dirty hippies kind of pagans.
Oh, absolute
yeah.
space cadets. But everything was already there, but I didn't know that it was a spirituality. I don't know if that sounds silly.
No, it doesn't. Not at all. Not to me, anyway.
I didn't put the label of spirituality on it, because growing up where I grew up in Northern Ireland, religion was a very big thing, and it was one or the other. There was no room to consider alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah, Barbara Lee told me, Barbara Lee was my my very first pagan mammy, I suppose, my witch mammy. Actually my only witch mammy. I haven't had one since. I do have an actual mother who I love very dearly. But yeah, Barbara told me that many years ago she was in Belfast at an event, and they were drinking in a pub after the event, and she, you know, it's the classic kind of somebody started talking to her about religion, you know, and she's like, well, actually I'm pagan, you know. And he turned around to her, you know, over the pint, and he said, aye, but are you a Catholic pagan or a Protestant pagan?
That's the legendary joke in Northern Ireland, but it's actually not a joke.
No.
So all the coded loyalties and languages and where you live and where you're educated, people's identity underlies their paganism. And still, very broadly, people fall into two camps, which is disappointing.
Yeah, because it's culture, as much as it is any kind of spiritual drawing, I think, at this point anyway.
Oh, way more. I mean, we never killed each other over transubstantiation.
Fair.
You know, it's not like, yes, this wafer is the body of Christ. No, it's a tribal conflict.
Yeah, and it's
not using the word tribal dismissively there.
I know. No, it's very real. Very literally a tribal conflict. And like, to a certain extent that's played out over the entire island, I suppose, but in so much less I suppose bloody and brutal ways. The underpinnings are there in our tribalism all over the island. For example, my brothers would have engaged in what I can only class as faction fighting, you know, growing up in kind of our teenage years in North County Dublin. We came from Ballymun and moved out to North County Dublin, which my parents probably thought was safer. But out there among the greenhouses and, you know, the cabbage fields, there was literal faction fighting every single weekend between various villages and towns, you know, and Murray's of Lusk. If anybody is familiar out there, Murray's of Lusk was a disco. So instead of all the factions or the tribes coming into market towns, which it would have been in the 18 and 1900s, you know, it has just completely progressed into the nightclubs and the hotspots. And, you know, if one gang of lads gets caught in the wrong place at the wrong time by another gang of lads, like, it's, you know, again, it's tribalism. But
sounds
obviously
familiar.
No, I know, and like, that's what I mean. Like, it's not the same thing, and I don't mean to in any way minimize.
Well, it's the same basic it's the same basic underlying impulse.
Yeah,
Usins and demons.
Exactly. Yeah? And we can really trace it right back. And the only time we seem to actually get our shit together is when we have a common enemy, you know, somebody else to fight. And, but even then, you know, I'm looking at my notes here beside me from my master's in regional history here in the southeast, and even then the Gaelic lords could not get their shit together against that common enemy. But anyway, sorry, we digress. But yes, there is a long and bloody history in Ireland, and it very much still runs through our people. Unfortunately, tribalism is still part of our living traditions. But I completely derailed that. So when did you officially kind of realize that what you were doing was paganism, and how, I suppose?
I suppose when I cleared space in my head from the whole Catholic, Protestant, Christian thing, it made room for me to consider what I genuinely believed, because I spent a lot of my life trying to decide whether or not I believed in God, and I had a conception of God as just the Christian God. Somebody once told me Jewish people didn't have a hell in their religion, and my concept of religion was so tied into Christianity that completely blew my mind. Wow. And I couldn't get my head around it.
Yeah.
I had to decide that I didn't believe in the Christian God and briefly label myself as an atheist and clear the decks in order to make space for all the things I did believe in to come bubbling up and sustain me. Yeah. And that's what happened round about my mid to late 20s, mid 20s. And it was really comforting to clear away that all the old myths and all the old nonsense and the mental conflict that came with that. And suddenly to realize I wasn't in this bleak spiritual place. I was in a much warmer, more sustained place where the land I loved was underneath me and around me and holding me. It was hugely comforting.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be able to put a name, I mean, that I'm relating to this so hard over here, like to be able to put a name like I am X, you know, it like pagan for me was the first kind of identity that actually fit, you know, my entire life. Like nothing else had fit me. Everything I was supposed to be, it just didn't fit, and it none of it felt right, which meant that I felt wrong, you know, because you internalize that and you feel that obviously if everything around you fits but you don't fit, then it, you know, you must be the square peg in the round hole kind of thing, you know.
I think a lot of us grow up feeling like we're the weirdo.
Yeah.
Why am I such a weirdo? Why can't I be like everybody else?
Yeah.
Except, did you ever really want to be like everybody else?
I really didn't.
Yeah, me either.
You know, and like fundamentally you kind of have this comfort with it's okay, but I think especially in your teenage years, maybe, you know, there is that urge to fit, you know, and I think everybody kind of has some element of that, but
there kind of wasn't for me,
right?
In the sense that from a really early age, being a Catholic family in a very loyalist town, we're like 3% Catholic in this town,
right, yeah.
and everybody knew what we were.
Right.
From an early age, I learned to take a degree of bravado in being different, because you had to face the bastards down.
So you had training. Like
this. It's like, fuck you. I'm not like you, and I don't need to be.
Yeah. And I kind of I went about it a bit of a weird way as well. In my urge to fit, I kind of wanted to fit like with, I mean, at the time it was grunge culture, you know, so like it was Combats and Doc Martens when everybody else,
so bad.
No, when everybody else around me was a raver, but I still like, that's what I mean. I still felt that I wanted to fit somewhere. I didn't have to fit there, but I wanted to fit somewhere. And I don't think that ever really kind of left me. And for me, that actually, I've turned that into like what was teenage angst. I've turned into a bit of a positive in that I work very hard to create community where people can fit and people can be as safe as possible. You'll never get completely safe space, obviously, but I think I'm still creating safe space for the teenager that I was. You know,
it never actually. Much as I claim that I'm different and special, I didn't have the urge to conform. Bollocks, of course I did, because when I joined OBOD, I mean, for me, OBOD began when I turned up at a Welsh eco village for a retreat, and everybody laughed for 5 days solid, but never spitefully, never meanly. And it was a very loving space. And that was the first time in my life I had been somewhere so comfortable for me,
safe,
and not felt like the outsider.
Yeah.
Community is hugely special if it's the right community.
Yes. Yeah. And it takes work, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't put that work in, whether they're leaders or participants. But anyway, I'm sure we're going to talk about community again. Oh, wait, question 2. Right. So what does being pagan mean to you? Or, I mean, your term of choice, do you use pagan now?
I use pagan now, and the term pagan is hugely relevant for me, but I use it. My understanding of the term pagan is that it's about your local area, not just rustic hillbilly, but it's the region of the little country bumpkins whose interests were confined to their own little parochial spot.
Yeah.
But for me, paganism is God, it's like Little Britain, a local religion for local people. It was the way you mediated your relationship with your own land and the spirits of your own land in order to sustain yourself and keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
So this is one reason I never understand the people who want to relate to Ireland when they're half a world away. I don't mean they're wrong. I mean, I can't be on that wavelength, because for me, it's got to be about your relationship with everything that surrounds you. So my paganism, I don't know if I believe in the gods or not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes there are archetypes. Sometimes I'm really not going to piss you off in case the Morrigan kisses or kicks my ass. Never kisses my ass, kicks my ass. But if the gods come and go, my land is always there. And I don't own it, it owns me. I never feel isolated here. At one point in my life, I was really, really isolated. And the night my dad died, I got a taxi back from the hospital, and I had no one in the world I could tell what had just happened, apart from the taxi man who drove me home. Even my brother didn't make it back, you know? So I came back and I walked the fields. And at one point I was just overwhelmed, and I actually just sank my hands into the ground because I was literally on my knees because I was in bits. And the wave of comfort I got from just being in this familiar, beloved place that could balance me was profound for me. So for me, it's all about service to my local land, service to my local ecology. And that has to include my human community, which has to include all sides of my local community. So my druidry, for example, would be as much about making sure the local farmer doesn't tear up the blackthorn ring. And then in the afternoon, you might be going out sowing some seeds or making nice piles of leaves for the larvae to shelter in over the winter. And then in the evening, you might be writing a letter to the local dole office to help Jimmy from down the road try and win his appeal because he's not getting the benefits he needs. If it's service, it's druidry. Is the way I work it.
I'm just going to come back a little bit to not understanding people in America who connect to Ireland. And I'm just going to kind of zoom out a little bit, because like you and I have had frankly, the blessing of being born where we belong, right? And I mean, for all, and you know the difficulty, you know the difficulty that I have with people feeling entitled to Ireland and entitled to, you know, everything, right? And also, you know that I don't believe that your spirituality is in your DNA. You know, it is about connection as far as I'm concerned, right? So in one way, I agree with you, but I also really understand the fact that like our Irish paganism, our Irish heritage is so connected to, and our ancestral memories are so connected to place, right? And if you know anything about DNA or anything like that, I mean, for all your spirituality is not in your DNA, it's about what you do, right? But that calling, that connection to place, I do believe runs through DNA. And I'm like, one of my modules in college has been about demography and migration, and it's really giving me a different perspective on the history of of the diaspora and of our migration, but of everything that went into building the identity around that, but also like from a spiritual perspective. I also believe in transmigration of souls, which a lot of people call reincarnation.
Yeah,
that's a term from a different culture. But I do believe that, you know, people could have had multiple lifetimes in Ireland, you know, and they just, again, they weren't blessed, as we would see it this time around, to be born here in place, you know. So I think that there is a lot of very, well, I'm not disagreeing with you at all, actually. I think that we maybe need to kind of zoom out and just look at all the different strands that go into that tapestry, you know.
no, I get that. And I wasn't meaning to criticize the people,
because
one thing that struck me very fiercely, I was over in Louisiana at an OBOD gathering, and the yearning that people had for a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
The yearning was palpable, and they did not feel able in good conscience. The people I was speaking with at the time were white people. They didn't feel able at the time in good conscience to ground themselves ancestrally in the USA because they had guilt over stolen land.
It's such a complicated mix.
It was really painful for them.
Yeah. And I mean, this is why I get so annoyed when people accuse us of gatekeeping at the Irish Pagan School, because we set healthy fucking boundaries about, you know, not coming to us with wearing your entitlement on your sleeve, you know, colonizer. And because we do get a lot of that, right? But unfortunately, people who are genuinely trying to connect then kind of feel that we're talking to them when actually we're not really fucking talking to them at all. We're talking to a very specific subset of people who feel that we owe them because they need it, you know, and that's not what we're dealing with at all. But who we want to be talking to and who we work so fucking hard, and I'm sure OBOD does as well, and you know, I'm sure you do personally when you're talking to those people in Louisiana, you know, we all who are here on the ground, I think every kind of Irish pagan in good conscience wants to fucking help all of those people connect genuinely, authentically, but respectfully. And I think that's where we kind of get it lost in translation a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's an entirely good argument that those people are a lot more Irish than I am. I'm born and bred here, but if you do the DNA route, I'm half Sicilian and half Yorkshire coal miner. I have no ancestry in this land. But it kind of grabbed me when I was a kid, and it's never let go.
Yeah, no, and this is where this is one of the reasons why I'm so fucking adamant that your 23andMe test, you know, you can take it and put it in your toilet as far as I'm concerned. The absolute bogus science besides anything, like, you know, those are not scientifically accurate, right? But anyway, that aside, it is about your connection. And you'll just, I mean, you've heard me harp on about this so many different times, but you have that connection, but because you put in the work, you go and you walk the land, you know, you do the reading, you know, you talk to other pagans, you explore the mythology, you deal with, you know, the people, literally the people around you. You are part of the culture. And I really
it's that old idea of pagan sacrifice, but what you give the land is yourself.
Yes.
And your time and your love.
Yeah. And like being pagan for me is that kind of country dweller, is being outside the cities, which in my brain currently in modern times, like for contemporary paganism, translates as being outside the norm of, you know, however that looks wherever you are, you know, is being on the outside and working on the boundaries. And when I say working on the boundaries, I mean both liminally and also like reinforcing those fucking boundaries against, you know, disrespectful people, because all of that is important work. But like what you talked about being a druid, like you say druid the same way I would say priest, you know, Like I do that work in my community as a sovereign priest. And I'm not even talking about my Morrigan priesthood, because that's actually a different thing, but I'm also a sovereign priest of Ireland. Like a priest of the sovereignty of Ireland is probably a better description of that. And within that role, I have both like sacerdotal and pastoral functions and jobs to do, you know. Now, priesthood looks different, druidry looks different for everybody. And I wouldn't in any way prescribe what anybody needs to be doing. Even though I did actually write a whole book on that, but you know, hopefully
it was a good book.
Yeah, but hopefully it's not prescriptive. Hopefully it's educational and, you know, helpful and useful and resourceful and all that. But I just find it really interesting that, like, you know, we're looking at the term pagan here. You've talked about druidry, I've talked about priesthood, you know, we've talked about nationality, do you know what I mean? Like, for me, paganism would be kind of an umbrella term, and everybody is going to find their own place within that, and or underneath that umbrella, if you like. And that's what I love about that term, and that's why
that's all the better for it.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to whip, because I mean, definition does mean limit. We don't want to limit people's possibilities.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So when you kind of realized that pagan was your thing, how did you practically go about getting started? And like at the time, so you're talking maybe like 30 years ago, what resources did you have available to you? Like what books, what teaching, what courses, what events, what people did you meet? Like, what you said that you didn't go looking for, or you weren't involved in community for the first 20 years of that. Like, so can you tell us a bit about that?
I suppose technically I was just at the very beginning. Well, I wasn't involved in a pagan community, but it was at the end of my time at university. So I was just finishing off in Oxford, and there was a little occult shop at the bottom of the Cowley Road where you could go in and you could buy your books. And I went in and I thought, right, I'm a pagan. And I didn't know what it was. So I bought a load of Aleister Crowley and a load of tarot decks.
Yay. Uncle Alistair. In fairness, there wasn't much more available at the time.
Well, if I want, because I mean, if I wanted somebody who was grandiose, egocentric, and willfully perverse, which at the time would quite have appealed to me, I would have absolutely felt at home with Uncle Alistair. But one of my closest friends had a really bad nervous breakdown and had been in with a bunch of Crowleyans at the time who hadn't treated her nicely.
Right.
So that kind of took me away from Crowley, which left me with the tarot. So I was kind of dabbling with silly occult in a very shallow way.
Yeah.
Not picking up on the genuine wisdom in it. And then I came home. And in a small, scabby Ulster town, which has a Bible shop and 7 churches and a load of pubs and not much else, there really wasn't much of an outlet.
Yeah.
But shortly after I came home, my family began to die when I came home. That is not related. That's that's correlation, not causation. I didn't come home and start like slaughtering everything.
Fair. But
sounded bad. I had an extended period where it was just myself and my dad wasn't well. So I very much retreated into family, land, and relationship. And it was just me. And I kind of had a very basic vocabulary for pagan, nature, religion. And I had the relationship I had with the landscape around me. So between looking after my dad and then in the evenings I would go on the internet, but everything on the internet was tripe. It was all
Angel Fire websites. I remember them well.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
And no, not 4chan. What were they?
GeoCities.
GeoCities.
With little revolving gifts of angels.
Yeah.
And how to light a yellow candle and put your lover's name in it. And it's like, oh, bullshit. This is nothing to do.
Yahoo groups.
Anytime I tried those, it was always full of people being unpleasant to each other about trivialities. So I gave up on the internet as a spiritual source for a couple of decades.
Yeah. the Celtic Reconstructionists and the Gaelic Reconstructionists. The Gaelic were kind of the hard guard at the time, and they were just horrible, and they were so threatened by anybody Irish coming into any of those groups.
Oh, did you threaten to take their toys away and show them that they were really just
didn't
plastic?
even at the time. I mean, I remember me as a little 18-year-old, like just literally just, I want community. I want people who are like me, and being so excited by finding, you know, other people initially who I thought were like me, and then having them fucking turn on you was just, it was heart-wrenching. I come by my grumpiness, honestly, my cynicism, like.
Jesus Christ.
I got
Do
such
you want
a
their
hard
kneecaps
time.
done? Do you know where they live?
Oh, I got such a hard time. I did meet some really cool people though. I met Geraldine actually, who was the first one of this series. I say series very, very loosely. I was looking it up to do these slides and stuff for this interview, and we are recording this in December 2021, just for the record. And I think Geraldine's interview was like July 2021. So like,
it was good enough to last that long.
We're calling it a series.
Geraldine's all brainy and stuff. Yeah. She knows her stuff inside out. Yeah.
Excuse me, you're very brainy too. What were you studying in college again?
Jurisprudence.
Right, yes. I couldn't even define jurisprudence, so don't give me that bullshit.
It's the philosophy of law, so the philosophy stuck with me and all the law faded.
There you go. There you go.
I wanted to study archaeology, but my headmaster wouldn't sign off on the university application unless I went for law because I was such a gobshite.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, there was nothing for decades. I came across Witter because it had the word Irish in it. And like 7 pages in, I threw it away as hard as I humanly could.
I think that's probably, did I last 7? I might have lasted 5 or 6, I think. Yeah, but similar anyway. Yeah.
Everything I read about Ireland wasn't my Ireland. It was some abstract Ireland of fairies and cakes and unicorns.
Yeah, like at the time, there was so much. Again, like studying the history of all this, like the whole Romantic Gaelic revival from the 1800s and 1900s really didn't do us any favors, you know. And a lot of people will hold up kind of Yeats and Lady Gregory and Standish O'Grady and you know, all of these kind of antiquarians who were, I mean, not Yeats, I suppose, but most of them at the time, most of the folklorists and that would have been outside the culture. And as you say, like it just doesn't translate for an Irish person. It doesn't translate like.
Yeats was a sustenance to me in a desert.
Yeah.
He had flashes of exactly what I needed.
Yeah, Yeats is imperfect, but I would have been exactly the same. I remember being so excited finding that Yeats had an occult interest, and somebody probably around the same time that I would have put the Witter book at the bottom of a compost bin, and there may or may not have been a spell involved. There was a book that was written on Yeats and the tarot. And I got very excited about the 4 treasures of the Tuatha Dé Danann as like the suits of the tarot and all of this kind of. But I mean, looking back on it, it was again very imperfect. That was somebody outside of the culture who was kind of getting a bit ahead of themselves. You know?
But it's odd how much of. See, the stuff that I got from outside the culture gave me the keys I needed to know where to start looking inside the culture. So a lot of the nonsense that was reflected back to me, I've had to unlearn, and I think I'm still in that process.
Yeah.
And but in the middle of the dross, there were key words. Yeah. Sorry.
No, go on. Yeah, go.
Well, it's just like, I think the first time I came across the 4 treasures of the Tuatha Dé Danann was in an Andrew M. Greeley book. And the most Irish thing about that was the Jim Fitzpatrick illustration on the cover. Yeah, it was a piece of fluff. But there were bits in it I could pick up on and follow up.
Yeah.
Like clues.
Yeah. And in a desert, like, you will take any oasis, even if it's slightly polluted. And and that's really what we were dealing with. Now, though, a lot of people, this is what I was going to say there, a lot of people kind of use that to excuse bad fucking scholarship and bad resources now. And I think currently there's just genuinely no excuse for that, because we have never had the amount of resources, like the legitimate historical material now that you can just Google for is fucking phenomenal. You know, we haven't had the digitization of our culture, obviously, in the past, and there is just currently, for contemporary pagan authors, there is no excuse for bad scholarship. There really isn't. You know, there's no excuse for bad research, because all those resources are there, and anything else is just laziness, entitlement, and just not giving a fuck and wanting to, you know, milk the Celtic cash cow, really, you know.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, the thing I took pretty much as my holy text were my dad's old Ordnance Survey maps from his glove box.
Yes. Yeah.
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 And if I couldn't spend huge amounts of time away from home, I could kind of travel in my mind and and remember and explore all the bits of the north that I didn't know.
Yeah.
These days you can come onto Facebook and ask a question, and somebody will throw you a reading list.
Yeah. These days you can go on Google Maps and literally visit. I mean, you're visiting it from the air, right? But you can literally visit any of the sites. You can zoom in to see the ring forts. You know, like, there is absolutely no reason why anybody now who isn't in Ireland can't familiarize themselves with those sites that your dad would have been mapping out and visiting. You know,
I mean, I traveled I think it was a couple of weekends back. It was a rainy afternoon. I traveled the Schlieve Beg Way on Google Maps.
Yeah.
And I'm so crap, I even get car sick on Google Maps after about half an hour. But it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just going into, like, I mean, you can go into the aerial view, like you can zoom right down to landscape, you know, take it off the map view and just go into landscape mode and zoom right down, and you can see every bump and fissure on the ground almost. Like, it's really phenomenal. And then if you go into street view, obviously, then you can literally walk the roads. Like, it's just, and I was, those maps have sustained me so much. I'm actually really glad you brought them up. The Ordnance Survey maps were very much the start of my pagan journey as well. Again, when you didn't have resources, you didn't have, you know, anything on the internet was just shit. Even like before the internet, before we even had the internet, you know, just, it didn't have books, didn't have anything, didn't have any academic training, you know, certainly for me at the time. Like, I wouldn't have known where to start with anything. Going into a library even, I wouldn't have known.
Oh, but place names. It's two things. It's maps and place names.
Yes, place names.
The echoes in the land of
Exactly. And those little red dots on those Ordnance Survey maps.
Yes.
And just seeing how many, like, getting the local Ordnance Survey map and seeing how many red dots you could actually, you know, I mean, for me as a teenager, how many of these red dots can I actually walk to? You know? How many can I hitchhike to?
Oh my God, I got busted for hitchhiking. I got busted for hitchhiking out at like 6 and 7 years old to go and visit the Houndstone. Near us. But yeah.
Yeah. And imagine my head, right? We had, I keep bringing up, obviously college for me is a big thing at the moment.
No, it's
kind
huge.
Of all
Come
consuming,
on,
right?
It's okay, because we're going to steal everything you learn.
Yes, you're getting,
and demand you to pass it on.
Yes,
so
you're getting the value of it at least.
Yeah.
One of our modules covered the mapping history. So we had a couple of lectures on that. And imagine the head on me, you know, sitting in class, right, and learning that we have this. We have practically, in Ireland, we have practically no mapping history until around the 1600s, when plantation started. and there were extensive surveys, you know, all through the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, you know, and all up.
Well, I may be bullshitting, but my understanding is that in most places, detailed mapping came along with detailed taxation, like the Domesday Book in England.
Exactly. So Ireland in the 1600s actually had some of the best mapping in Europe. We literally went from 0 to 100 like overnight almost, right?
We were an exploitable resource. You've got to tabulate before you can exploit.
So imagine the head on me sitting there, you know, side-eye and Amy
do your
beside
grumpy
me.
face. Come on. Do me an impression of your grumpy face when you learn
No,
that.
I can't do it. I can't do it on demand. But yeah, we learned all about the surveys and the surveyors, and you know, there was a whole module of it, and I was just kind of gradually sinking into
But there's one nice thing from like the 1800s onwards. I may be mistaken. I think it's 1800s onwards. The Ordnance Survey memoirs, which at least for the North contain one of the few records, unbiased records of the scraps of folklore that we were losing, and the old memories of Oriel. You know, that part of Ireland that lost its identity.
Yeah, and like the antiquarian interest, like before the, I suppose, archaeology and history got kind of standardized, Ireland was very appealing. I mean, you know, nobles from all over Europe used to come and do their tours around Ireland, and you know, we do have a lot of historical resources from those periods and from those kind of, you know, let's go and spend a summer talking to the peasantry, you know, these uncivilized barbarians, right?
If I look out of my window, there is, okay, I live right between two towers. One was built by one aristocrat for the memory of his mother, which is Helen's Tower. Out the other window, I can see Scrabo Tower, built for the Marquis of Londonderry, who was very much a let's go talk to the peasantry. But he did that during the famine, which had some, the effect of stirring England's conscience a little.
Yes, yeah.
Only a little.
Yeah, so there's some, you know, there's some, I suppose, diamonds in the dross as we actually look through it, but yeah, like there's a lot. So the books and teaching and courses and events. So what happened like 10 years ago to kind of change your mind, or did you said about going to Wales and you just kind of stumbled into OBOD, and what happened from there?
Not long after my dad died, it became time for me to come out into the world of work again and actually start having a life after a long period of living like a monk and being really isolated. So it took me a while to adjust to normal life again, having a job, earning a paycheck, deciding not to go and do the fancy career that I'd qualified for because I was so out of touch and so different. I was never going to do that. So I got a job in the local call center, much to the distress of my surviving relative, who really wanted me to be something that, you know, was respectable.
Yeah.
But I started having a job that was no problem to me and just living a life. And then I thought, hang on, there's a bit of me. I would like to be able to sit down and talk about the things that really matter. And maybe things have changed. There might be more on the internet. So I went looking for Northern Irish pagans. And there was a little pagan group called Pagan Voice, and it was great. But then there came a sort of period of political discord in the Northern Irish pagan community about whether we were going to stay as part of the Irish Pagan Federation, because Pagan Federation Ireland is the whole island, or whether we were going to split off and have a separate Northern Irish Pagan Federation, which would be its own thing.
This was after, so I can't remember what year Pagan Federation, because when I would have got involved, Pagan Federation, we were Pagan Federation Ireland and Scotland. So Ireland didn't even have its own Pagan Federation at that point. I can't remember what year the Pagan Federation started. I'm sure somebody could come in the comments and correct me on that.
Wasn't the original Ireland Pagan Federation Melanie and Wolf?
That sounds about right. And Wolf actually recently passed away. I don't know.
Oh no, we're thinking of different ones then, because Melanie and Wolf are still going strong.
Oh,
they're living
I'm
down
sorry.
in County Clare.
My apologies. I was momentarily confusing them with Melody and Stefan Grundy. Stefan Grundy passed away recently. Melanie and Wolf are the ones who would also be involved in reenactment as well, I believe.
Yeah, and Melanie does all the straw work. She's a great crafter.
Apologies,
and
I
Wolf
had
is
a
a very
brain
good
blip
artist.
there for a minute. Yeah.
When that wee schism came in the community, it showed me. We're a very small community anyway, and I couldn't be bothered. So I just decided, right, I'm going to go and do something pagan somewhere where there's none of this politics to melt my head and none of the old familiar faces.
Around what year was that, Pat?
Around about 2012, 2013.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was mucking around online and I saw this village that looked like hobbits had built it, and it's a place called Caimabon in Wales, built by a magnificently weird man called Eric Maddern. And it was hosting an OBOD retreat, so I thought I'd go. And I turned up, and there are not many people that I would consider a celebrity pagan, but Philip Cargom would have been one of the few faces I would have recognized.
Fair, yeah.
So you bounce in, this is this guy with this hair like a dandelion, and he just gives you a big hug, and he's not remotely up himself.
Yeah.
And you have 5 days of being with really cool people. It was amazing. But it was also daunting because they were all brainy and talented, and they knew shit, and they'd written books, or they could do amazing things. And you're like wandering around going, oh crap, I'm really outclassed here.
Okay.
So I could either
you
learn.
Don't need to be classy to write a book. Speaking from experience.
I think you do.
You really don't.
I think you really do. I think you need to give yourself credit.
You
Miss what? 8 books now? How many is it?
Yeah, 8. I actually, I always forget.
Oh shit, does that mean you're a celebrity pagan these days?
Shut up.
Yeah, just squirm a bit harder. You give good squirm.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, sorry, that was unfair.
No, and Pat, having met you again in person, but also like having had the benefit of your insight in groups, I actually find it painful when you dismiss yourself as not being smart enough, or not being clever enough, or not being good enough. It's so disappointing.
I'm clever, but I'm not. There are so many ways I have to grow and so many things I have to learn.
Good. We all do. And that awareness of like where your own like gaps are, that is a strength, not a weakness. Like
in
seriously,
that case, I'm very strong.
You're very strong. And that is the type of person that like we need as a voice in our community, so that people don't have to fuck off to Wales and to find some fucking peace, like, seriously.
Well, Wales was the best thing that happened to me.
I'm not, sorry.
It's also where I ran into Emer Burke and met Emer for the first time. And through Emer, that's how I ended up traveling and spending a lot of time down south.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I have my other community.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah. Emer is such an amazing person. For anybody who doesn't know, Emer Burke has just been has she been sworn in yet as the head of OBOD?
She has. So technically it's coming up on 2 years in June, but she hasn't had her physical sort of.
I think that's where my gap was. I haven't.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about it as an installation because that makes her sound like a washing machine and stops her.
Fair. Yeah. So Emer Burke is the first Irish person to be in charge of like an international Druid organization, as far as I know.
Well, any international Druid I suppose. So, yeah. How many international Druid organizations are there?
Well,
because the ADF is American, BDO.
They're British.
I don't know if they count as international, maybe.
Yeah, but they also don't have an Irish person in charge.
Yes,
ADF certainly don't. Like the OBOD are kind of the closest, I think, have been historically the closest to Ireland, and at least trying their fucking best to incorporate genuine Irish stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're imperfect. We're working on it.
Yeah, I have my difficulties, but a lot of that is based on historical stuff, and I've always been very open about that. But I have a lot of hope for Emer stepping up and taking over. I have a lot of faith in Emer as a person.
I do too.
Yeah.
But also in her own grove that she runs in Kilkenny, So a lot of the ritual is conducted in Irish, and a lot of the genuine mythology and archaeology that I've learned down there. Yeah.
No, I know. And again, like the standards of people like Emer have never been in question as far as I'm concerned. And I have certainly never questioned them.
But also that's where I made my connection with Koch Brannigan and with Deirdre Walsh.
Yeah.
You know,
both of whom
so one of the best resources for me is people.
Yeah. Deirdre Walsh actually has a school, just for anybody who's not familiar, Choruses, SOIS, and has been running priestess training, or priesthood training, I believe, and a few other classes. I know she's doing a class. We had talked originally about her doing it through the Irish Pagan School, and then she decided to do her own thing, which I'm really delighted for, to be honest. I love seeing people go off, like it doesn't have to run through me at all. So she's doing a weekly course, I think, in Irish for ritual. Would I be right?
Yeah, I'm taking that.
Irish language, that is.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of us can do our Druids. I mean, any OBOD member can do their Druid's prayer and their Druid peace prayer and their Druid vow in Irish. At least those of us who are interested in it. But Deirdre is, and it's a microcosm of paganism in general, calling the quarters in, the call for peace, invoking deity, invoking spirit. And that's like the first couple of weeks. Goodness knows what's to come. She's a really good teacher.
She was a teacher professionally, so you know, I'm not surprised.
She's a good teacher for adults as well.
Yes, but she's an amazing storyteller as well. Deirdre would have been one of the first people that I met on the Irish pagan scene. I was very lucky, actually. I was really, really lucky. I met Barbara Lee at my first moot, the monthly pagan social meetings, and it was actually, that was the second ever moot to be held in Ireland in the late 90s. So it started in January. It started with Maura McHugh, Celia Muller, and a guy called Ivan, or March, I think, as he was known. So the three of them got together and decided that they were going to run a moot, and it was still under the Pagan Federation. Or were they involved with the Pagan Federation? They were involved. I don't know if it was actually officially under the auspices of the Pagan Federation, but that would have been Ireland and Scotland at the time. And I missed the first one where Janet Farrar was recruiting. And went to the second one in the February where Barbara Lee was, I suppose, recruiting as well, in fairness. I mean, moots are great for meeting people for covens and groups and, you know, getting togethers. They're kind of a filter system where, you know, especially if stuff is being run in your own home, like you want to meet somebody in a public space or you actually invite them into your sitting room, you know. So I suppose as far as like that sort of thing goes, Barbara was recruiting there. But
I have never met Barbara Lee, but really? Almost everyone else I know seems to have. So I'm impressed at a distance.
Yeah, no, she's amazing. She's an amazing woman. But yeah, and I would have met Deirdre then through her, probably at either Chris Thompson's. Chris was running the Grove of Shinnon up in Leitrim at the time. And she was doing things like the Lunatic Games. That's Chris Thompson, who runs storyarchaeology.com, which is a fantastic podcast for anybody who, So Chris and Isolde, Chris would have been identifying as pagan at the time. She doesn't anymore, but she's still very into the storytelling and the mythology, obviously. And Isolde Carmody would have been up there living on, I don't think she was living on her place at the time, but she did after. So yeah, and then there was another group down in Cork who I won't be naming. But yeah, so it was one of those that I met Deirdre at. Anyway, was my fucking rambling point. Sorry, going off track. But that would have been.
See, we are lucky to have an island small enough that we can find teachers.
Yeah, and like the only kind of issue that I've ever had with anybody like from that kind of generation who's been working in Ireland, unfortunately, there would have been a heavy influence in the 80s and 90s from John and Kathleen Matthews, who were kind of the only seemingly legitimate like Celtic, air quotes, Celtic teachers at the time, and they were peddling kind of Celtic shamanism. Now a lot of their kind of scholarship and stuff has definitely been as people got to know more, know better, we started to do better. Let's be polite and put it that way. But there was a lot of our own stuff kind of being fed back to us at that point. And that's kind of the issue, as we've talked about before, like that's the issue I've always had with like growing up in Irish paganism as I've done. Really through a lot of the formative years, and being very openly and publicly involved through, like, again, from the age of 18, a lot of like what was being kind of coming back onto the island wasn't actually Irish. It was from groups like OBOD at the time. And I mean, 20 years ago, like whatever, you know, as you say, like you're doing better now, and that's great. Like, but at the time, like it really was not good, you know, like hands up, you know, it really was not good. And even at the time, it was recognizably not good. And the Matthew stuff also, like even the shamanism term, like, is still being used around the island. And
I don't think that they still use that term.
Good, that's good. Yeah,
I can't speak for them. I've never actually met them, but some of the people I respect most have learned from them and have been inspired by them.
I know. And I
think it sort of works generationally. Yeah, it's a bit like Yeats. Yeats wasn't strictly native, and we can argue about whether Yeats kept things alive, or whether Yeats was such a big voice he drowned out native voices.
I'm gonna
say that I think John and Kathleen Matthews kept things alive, and now the people who learned from them are integrating it into a more authentic form of Irish spirituality.
I totally see where you're coming from with that, but I actually strongly disagree with it. I believe that people who were looking for something in the 80s and 90s in Ireland, if left to their own devices, would have developed a lot stronger roots here natively if they didn't have that kind of easy fix being handed to them as something that was genuine, you know.
I don't know what it was like to have been actively looking at that time. I do know that a lot of what people have learned from them as an actual spiritual technique has been effective. But in terms of integrity and authenticity and scholarship, I'm in no position to critique their work. I don't have that level of learning.
And this is kind of where my difficulty lies with, and you know, why I'm seen as the fucking problem child of Irish paganism, because I don't go easy on any of this stuff, you know. And again, I have my opinions on things.
Well, God help you for having a point of view. You're a bad bitch. It's not like you shout people down who disagree with you. You just express yourself strongly.
And I really hope that, you know, people who hear those opinions don't ever think that I don't respect them personally, because I really fucking do understand how people end up on the paths that they end up on. I do. Like, there's
Laura, I've heard people be bitchy, and I've heard you. You're not bitchy, you're not personal. You're coming from a place of principle. You and I will always fight, because my principles are blurry and imperfect, whereas yours are logical and rigorous. But you're never nasty, and you're never personally bitchy. Well, not that I've heard. Maybe you are. Someday we'll have gin and we'll find out.
In complete fairness, I don't say anything in private that I wouldn't say to somebody's face, and regularly do. And that, my friend, is why I get in trouble. So anyway, let's move on before we fucking alienate everybody, or before I alienate everybody.
You're not alienating anybody. I also seriously doubt that John and Kathleen Matthews, with bookshelves of books to their name, are so fragile that they can't stand a critical opinion.
Yeah. And like, I did I mean, I still have my doubts, and a lot of people will be like, well, they've changed and blah, blah, blah. Like, I did, in fact, see Caitlin Matthews online within the last couple of months say that there's no physical description available of Cuchulainn in any of the mythology.
Oh.
Do you know, so like, I am not just going for anybody personally. I happened to come across that in a pagan group, and she weighed in on something, and I was like, really? So
I guess she's as human and fallible as anyone.
absolutely.
I also got a lot of really
Absolutely.
good wisdom from reading some of the things she's written.
Yeah.
During lockdown, her blog helped keep my head screwed
Good.
on.
I'm
But it wasn't
glad.
mythological. It
Yeah.
was just, she
seems like a lovely person, you know, in herself.
She seems like a very emotionally intelligent person with a lot of insight.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. So like, I have, again, my standards, my boundaries, my points that I need to guard, you know, as part of my sovereignty, or my sovereign priesthood. So that is my role and function. And if people decide to, you know, step up and have better scholarship because of that, then great. That is, you know, that's my job fucking done. You know, that's all I want to see at the end of the day.
Did we not decide it? Well, you didn't decide because you can't take a compliment. Did we not decide at one point you were a bit of a lighthouse? Steering people away from dangers and errors by highlighting the things that mattered.
Yeah, you probably, I don't know if you can see my body language, but
I love it. You're so scary. It's so easy to bully you by giving you a compliment.
Shut up. Question 4. What sort of things do you do on a daily / weekly, monthly, or seasonal basis to explore or express your spirituality?
As a member of OBOD, there are a couple of things I would do on a daily basis. So we've got an energy exercise that we do, and also a visualization exercise that are regular parts of the practice.
Great.
And anytime I'm about to lose my temper, which happens regularly, I would take myself out and do the Druid's prayer in Irish.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to slow me down.
Having something like that is invaluable. Yeah.
It's just, it flips the switch in my head and stops me exploding. But also I would walk the boundaries of my 8 acres of sheep shite and stones.
Yeah.
And okay, this is weird.
Yes,
this is a thing I got into.
I bet it's not. It's only weird is entirely dependent on the company that you keep. And I guarantee you that there are people watching this, and my own good self, who are not going to think this is weird. Carry on.
It's whenever I was a solitary practitioner, I'd given up on the internet and I was just doing my own thing. There's a series of altars around my fields, but they don't look like altars. Anyone that's around the fields won't know what they are unless you know what to look for. And buried under each of them, there is a big, mad notebook full of prayers and poems and automatic writing and general bullshit from out of the back of my head. And it's a bit like doing the Stations of the Cross, doing the boundaries of my fields. Yeah. Because you know which places to visit, and they have significance for me. It's a little spiritual journey doing that round.
I actually think that the stations, maybe not the stations, but certainly the way the patterns are done in Ireland. I don't know if you have that up north, but down here, like the patterns around the wells would be very similar, where you go around the bounds and you have the particular prayers at particular stopping points, like, but it's the Turas Jeshel, it's the sunwise journey, actually, is what Turas Jeshel means. And it is a very ancient tradition in Ireland.
We've got one down in Portavogie that rings a bell with. Not many of our holy wells, certainly around County Down, are, well, no, actually some up, there's a couple up around Newry. We don't have as many as you do, and they're not as unrestrained as yours, but they are still here. Yeah.
And the Turas Jeshel wouldn't just have been around the wells, it's just that's where it has fit into the Catholic tradition down here specifically, you know, but it's still the same ritual. It's just the language has changed. The prayers have changed. You know, but that's exactly what you're describing. And walking the boundaries, particularly at in Irish folklore tradition, particularly at the two major turning points of the year, at Bealtaine and Samhain, would have been an integral part of, I think, most families, certainly rural families, would have walked the bounds of their land at those kind of turning points, which would have been danger points, you know, vulnerable points, where things were changing and shifting, and you know, it was important to make sure that your boundaries were in order.
So it's a habit I picked up, and again, it was some kind of comfort and security to me at a time when there was a bit of sectarian hassle around here.
Yeah.
So, you know, the windows were getting put in and there was hostile graffiti on the road at the end of my lane and stuff.
Yeah.
Standard trivia.
Yeah.
But it was a protective thing and has since become integral.
Yeah. I would argue that you were kind of listening to your DNA again. You know?
My DNA is allegedly Yorkshire Sicilian, which makes me volatile and stingy.
Okay. Listening to the land, maybe.
Ancestry of the land is a huge deal. Or
no,
maybe I'm reincarnated.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Exactly. You know, again, like when we teach ancestry at the Irish Pagan School, we specifically teach about, like, I teach it like a three-legged stool. So it's not that your bloodlines and your DNA are not important, because they are. But you also have your social ancestry. So again, you know, you going down to the Protestant guy, the old farmer guy down the road, and checking in and making sure he has his, you know, he has what he needs or whatever. And I'm just presuming that you do that because you're that type of person, right?
It's Bertie up the road. He's in his 90s.
There you go.
Yeah?
There you go. I knew there'd be a Bertie. I knew there would.
He's a cracking lad. He taught me how to build dry stone walls.
See, that's your social ancestry right there.
Yeah.
You know, that is, again, you don't have to be a priest or a druid or whatever you want to call it, like, to do stuff like that, but you know, it helps. Right? And then there's your spiritual ancestry, and again, your social ancestry could also be like different communities, like if you were a member of an LGBT community or whatever. And I always joke that, like, Freddie Mercury could be your ancestor. I'm just saying, right? You know, and that is as legit to me as anything. And then of course there's your spiritual ancestry as the third leg, which is of my metaphorical stool, which would be if there's transmigration of your soul, you know, you may have lived past lives in that very situation, you know, on that very land.
Almost identical to the OBOD teaching, ancestry of the blood, of the land, and of tradition. Okay. So I always claim the little bit of me that's still a lawyer.
Cool, actually, yeah. Didn't know that.
Yeah. I claim all these sort of famous American lawyers like Clarence Darrow as my ancestors of tradition.
That's cool. That's really, really cool. So yeah, that's actually really interesting. I didn't know that that was. I've never done any kind of official, like, Druid training or anything like that. So
I don't think there is. Is there such a thing as an official Druid?
Okay.
I'd hate to think
organizational Druid training, let's call it.
Okay.
I've never studied with anybody, or apart from, in fairness, apart from my Wiccan tradition days and my because I was actually part of an initiatory tradition through traditional Wicca, and I was also part of an initiatory tradition through the OTO, the OTOF in Ireland. So I have those kind of, I have my pedigree papers. I have all that shit.
Don't you think it's not necessary, but it's helpful to have been through a schooling so that you learn the rules so you can break them intelligently?
Yes, to a certain extent. For me personally, even at the time, even like as an 18-year-old coming into Wicca, it was very obvious to me that that wasn't my spiritual path or religious path, but it was the social and community pathway that I needed, and it was the structural training. You know, for me, especially traditional Wicca, it really was like kind of going to college in the occult, because I was very lucky with the coven that I was in. They were very rigorous in ritual training, in, you know, training for group leadership, in training for like wider community involvement, activism, you know, all those kind of things that actually have
Nice.
informed a lot of my, I suppose, my umbrella term paganism now, right? I definitely credit that initial group situation and as I've mentioned, like Barbara Lee and you know, and all the people that I was involved with at the time.
God, I
So
could have done with the ritual training. I'm a
yeah,
disaster in ritual.
and
I'd like wander around the circle like a lost puppy getting in trouble.
you see, like ritual, and now, again, when we know better, we do better, all the rest of it. But like looking back, that ritual training was cobbled together from so many different cultures and traditions, and really is quite appropriative, right? So I'm not sure I'd like wholeheartedly recommend it currently, right? But at the time, what it gave me was a look at multiple different traditions, you know, which I, as a monocultural, you know, rural Irish person, I had zero exposure to any of those cultures or traditions or anything. So it did give me a flavor of a lot of things and kind of got me interested, and also like taught me what I wasn't interested in as well. So it was useful in that way. But again, like it's kind of back to that argument, like, is something better than nothing? And I don't know that it is. I think like it's one of the reasons that I don't, I
I
have
have a
always,
mistrust of purity.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah. If
I've
something
always
is,
tried.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, go on. No, go on. Go on.
Um,
Mistrust of purity.
having been reared in an environment where people were constantly telling me your religion is wrong. It wasn't actually my religion. It was just the name that was,
Yeah.
yeah. But I was at school, and the school zealots all wanted to convert a Fenian. Yeah. So they would come down and they would lay out in perfect logical, infallible argumentation why their view of the Bible and Christianity was the one true view, and what the errors and flaws of Catholicism were, and their arguments were absolutely unanswerable. And I just looked at them and I knew I didn't want to be them.
Yeah.
And the genuine, if I see genuine spirituality welling up in a person or a community, I'll take that for what it is, and I'll excuse the flaws in doctrine and make my own way around them.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah. And coming from where I am currently, I'm personally exactly the same. One of the
But you
problems,
are at the moment a radical force in the scholarship, so you have to be.
I kind of have to like set that fucking standard and hold to it. But at the same time, like how I've always taught, and I mean, you can go back to my first fucking book in 2004 and see it exactly in this way, like laid out in this way. How I've always taught is, here's the information, here's how, maybe some examples of how I've done it, how I have used that information as part of my spiritual practice or as part of my magical practice or my ritual practice or whatever. Now go and do this yourself. Now go and figure out how to do this yourself, you know? So my teaching and the teaching of the Irish Pagan School now currently is all about giving people the tools and the resources to figure their own shit out and genuinely connect themselves authentically and respectfully. And I know I keep fucking banging on with that, but it is so important. That kind of right relationship with source is so important, because that is where our growth has happened. I've seen it. I've seen it countless times over the years, where once, as you say, once those decks are cleared, like you said, you know, you had to pretend you were an atheist for a while, or you had to be an atheist.
I had to clear out the weeds for the good stuff to grow.
Exactly. And that's literally what I've been trying to like hold space to, just to like clear space and just say, right, like we're gonna hold this space right here. And who we're inviting into this space is anybody who wants to engage genuinely, but also all these fucking teachers who don't know their own worth, because that is a very Irish thing, right? And again, you know,
yes,
post-colonial trauma is a real thing. And Irish people genuinely don't know our own worth because we have been, you know, educated to believe that we were uncivilized barbarians and peasantry for so long, you know.
and we don't get above ourselves for fear of being clubbed down.
You get no.
But as I also say, I dream of the day I get to have post-colonial trauma.
Yeah, I know. And
that wasn't meant as a reproach.
No, I know. And that is a very important point. And Pat was actually the first person, internet, Pat was the first person that really kind of fucking stuck it in my head. You know, I was like banging my drum about post-colonial Ireland being a post-colonial. And like Pat very, you know, politely raised the point that there is a whole fucking section of our island that is still colonial, right? It's still colonized. And that is
the difference is that you're one of the people who doesn't mentally cut us off and cast us adrift.
Oh no, I'm all island,
and I'm not naming names.
Yeah.
But there are people who do not consider the North to be Irish.
No.
Somebody in a Celtic paganism group told me that about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Fuck that shit. No.
They say we're British. Yeah, right. We may legally be part of the United Kingdom at the moment, but you try telling the land of Ireland that 6 counties of it don't belong to it.
No. And anybody who says that does not understand sovereignty. As I have felt it on the island, you know, and it has always been a whole island spirituality to me, while also recognizing, trying to be respectful of, and trying to understand from an outside perspective, even though, like, obviously as anybody on the island, and maybe with my family, you know, we were more maybe intimately involved than other families might have been, and that's as much as I'm willing to admit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we would have a very active nationalism, let's call it that way, right? Historically in our family. And so like that's what I would have grown up with, but ultimately, like, I'm still an outsider, you know. And as much as spiritually I live and breathe this island as an entity, as a whole entity, and always have done my whole life, always have done, and very consciously do that now. It is important to recognize, I mean, we talk a lot about boundaries, like we have this fucking boundary that's a problem on our island, right?
Yes, it is. But you know what, there may be a British flag flying in the town square of my local town, but they've never put the border in my head.
Yeah.
The way people who are partitionists and don't count the North as Ireland. They've let the British build the border in their head, and they're policing it for themselves. So they're the most defeated Irish people I know. And shame on them.
Yeah, well, I, for one, would welcome anybody on this island who wants to declare themselves Irish, you know, and I suppose that's the most respectful way I can go about that. I have absolutely open arms for anybody who wants to be involved in Irish paganism from anywhere on the island. Like 100%, no questions asked. And I really don't understand an attitude or a mentality that would differentiate, you know, somebody who wants to spiritually connect like that, who has breathed the air of Ireland their whole fucking life. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's Irish, you know, if they want to be, obviously. I also wouldn't try and impose that on anybody, because that's important too. You know, there are people on the island who do not consider themselves Irish, and that's okay too. Like,
maybe it depends on which flag they want to fly.
Yeah.
Fuck them. There's like a political identity and there's a land identity. And if you have bred and crapped and hoed and sowed and shagged in the bushes on this land, then I don't care what flag you salute. If you love the land beneath your feet, I'll stand in circle with you, and you can call it what you want. Yeah.
No.
What bothers me is all the people who, because they have no proper sense of connection to this land, will sell and destroy it, like the gold mining in the Sperrins, like the dredging of Loch Ness, like the gas caverns in Larne. People who don't feel a belonging to this land and are quite happy to despoil and exploit it. And that's the worst of our colonial problem here.
Yes. And that is, in fairness, a colonial problem all over the fucking world. That lack of connection, you know. I mean, there's a reason that we harp on about it so much, the connection and the right relationship, because that is ultimately what all of this shit comes down to, you know. So
we've got to fight the good fight.
We do. And we are, you know, we are. Sometimes it doesn't seem like we're getting very far, but we're still fighting. So I mean, interesting. Moving on to this question now. How important is it to you personally to be in Ireland physically? I think we've maybe covered this.
I always knew. I mean, I did study in England, and after I finished university, I hung around my university town for a couple of years because I wasn't quite ready to come back to be in the small town under the eye of the folks again. Because I was never quite what they considered respectable, and I didn't want to be. But I never doubted I would come back, and I never doubted I would actually come back to here, this exact address, these exact fields. I can be away for a while. I've been away for years on end at times, but I'm not going away again except for like the odd week here and there. I'm where I want to be.
And that, again, that connection, like, it's palpable, like, as you talk about it there.
You gotta love it. Come on, how about you? I mean, you travel for work. If you had to live abroad, if you had to live in California for 2 years.
I physically couldn't. 3 weeks is the longest I've been away.
What, in your whole life?
In my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I begin to get ill. So when I was a teenager, I was traveling in trucks for a while across Europe. I had a boyfriend who was a truck driver. And so I saw a lot of Europe that way and had some very interesting times. So there would be, I think probably like 3 weeks was the max, but like that would be going out and coming back, you know. So
but it sounds like you had a lot of 3-week periods, or a lot of trips, just not big long ones.
Exactly. But what I didn't realize was, because I was thinking like, oh, I've traveled loads, like I'm fine, you know. But the first trip to America I did, I think it was like 2016. I think I was invited over to Pantheacon, or, you know, submitted a proposal and they said yes, right, whatever. Invited. Sounds very fancy, but I had just, I think it was 2013, 2014 when I left the management position of the Rathcrohan Visitor Centre. And up until that point, I had been stopped from teaching outside of Ireland. So up until that point, I
take it we mean metaphysically stopped.
Yes, sorry, yes. I had a kind of an embargo on me, and basically I was set up in that position and people would come to me on pilgrimage. So I spent a good decade teaching in situ and developing connection with the sites and with the land and all that. So I was in Roscommon at that point. And that was all very important to me, and also in Clare, where my family is from. So like just on either side of the Shannon, basically. It was East Clare. So I was literally on either side of the Shannon on the lakes. And it was only kind of 2015 that I started being able to even like teach online or anything like that. I literally hadn't been able to, like, now I had been able to write books, that was okay, but not actually physically teach, not travel. And it was 2015 that the whole Herald of the Morrigan thing fucking came up for me. And that job description was placed on me, where and it really is like, the Morrigan particularly was literally gathering the resources at home first. And from that point then, it was okay. And probably I was in training at that point, really looking back on it. You know, I had to learn everything that I had to learn. I had to get the context for everybody coming on those spiritual pilgrimages. I had to get outside my own perceptions on my own relationship with the land and understand other people's relationship with the land as well. So it wasn't just all about me, you know, so those were very valuable lessons there.
But also it made sure that your head wouldn't be turned and you wouldn't be lured away from.
Yeah. No, I was grounding. It was grounding in a fucking cave. Like, that's how grounding it was, right? And then at that point, then the whole Herald thing came up, and guess who didn't want to? Guess who didn't want to travel? Guess who did not fucking want to at all? So that was happening, and I think I put it off for a year, and then I couldn't put it off. So that was the February in 2016 that I went over first. And in my fucking innocence, I didn't understand how painful it would be for me to be away from Ireland. Especially in that situation, as an extreme introvert, in that situation of being in other people's space all the time, you know, while also being on so consistently, you know, and teaching wise and all the rest of it. Big, huge events that I hadn't, the scope of which I had not, I mean, little innocent Irish head on me, I had not had any experience with. Like 3 floors of a fucking giant hotel, all taken up with this mega conference over like 3 days or 4 days or whatever it was, as well as all the other teaching and workshops and everything around that, and suites and just all sorts of stuff. And then I decided that once I was done in California for 2 weeks, I was going to do another week in New York on my way home.
You're a muppet. How raw did you feel by the end of it, and how exposed all the way through?
I mean, I was over there, and, you know, it's going to sound really weird, but, you know, like Pancake Tuesday, right? So it's Shrove Tuesday for anybody who's not familiar. In Catholic Ireland, that is a big deal. It is the start. Pancakes. Yeah, the start of Lent. And, you know, like me growing up, it was all about the pancakes, right? But it's a huge cultural thing. It's not just the religious thing, obviously. I haven't observed Lent for since I was like 5, I think. But the whole pancake thing was a huge thing. And especially because our traditions had gotten a little bit mixed in our household, and like the first pancakes had to be given to the she, and there was a whole other kind of spiritual thing going on. So like, and because I have 3 kids, that was the first time I had not spent Pancake Tuesday with my children. And of all the shit that I went through on that, and some of the trip was amazing, and I met so many amazing people, and I don't mean to like call it all shit or anything. I really don't mean that, but personally it was very, very difficult. And of everything, that for some fucking reason, Pancake Tuesday was the most difficult part of that. And then I still had to do New York, and New York was amazing again, met loads of amazing people, wonderful people, but that was a 3-week trip, and I came home, and my entire life fell apart, by the way. And I think I was laughing a little bit at your whole I had to go atheist. I'm also I'm polyamorous, so I had multiple relationships at the time, none of which were really, in hindsight, doing me any good, except my relationship with John, who was in my life at that time. But had only just come into my life at that time. So he was expecting, if everything went tits up, that he would be like last in, first out kind of thing, you know. Turns out he's the only one who lasted, you know, because reasons. But it was that kind of like, it was being away from Ireland cut me off from everything. And that's
not always bad though, to leave you with your own essentials.
Yes. And I had to figure out from that point, you know, how important is it for you to be personally, to be in Ireland physically? Like, it literally cut me off from everything except my children and John. And I suppose my family, like, grudgingly, I love you, family, as in my siblings and my mother, not my father, he can fuck off. But he's dead now. But,
I figured.
Yeah. But you know, it's just like, what is actually important? And when you're in your comfort zone, which I suppose is the point of all this fucking big long ramble. This is supposed to be an interview for you, Pat. What are you doing turning it back on me?
Fight me. Come on. You can edit this bit out later. Tell me, I want to hear.
We all know I'm not going to do that. It sounds like work, Pat, and effort. What you see is what you get, lads. Oh, that was a gender term. I haven't used one of those in a while. Sometimes they slip in. Apologies, folks. So, comfort zone. I mean, Ireland, and I know you're going to relate to this, like, Ireland is just the epitome of comfort zone for me. And to the point where it gets extremely uncomfortable if I leave Ireland. I get physically ill. Like, by the time I came home, I was ill after 3 weeks.
Depleted. And yeah, okay, I get that.
Physically
Don't
ill.
You also find it's work when you've internalized Irishness to a certain point. It becomes work to be outside Ireland because you're dealing with other people's expectations of. Seriously, it's
Have
like
you been
like
to Pantheacon? You're reading my mind right now.
But I remember the first time I went to New York, a different life speaking tour, bollocks, going around speaking at various American universities.
Speaking tour, speaking at university.
Debating tour, not speaking from any expertise. The only thing I was ever good at was saying things, but I never had anything to say.
Debating is a skill.
Everywhere you went, people would be forcing their view of Irishness on you in a ham-fisted attempt at hospitality.
Yeah.
And it felt very much like I know who I am. Mm-hmm. I know. Stop telling me who you think I am.
Yeah.
Back off. Give me space.
Yeah. And I think that's actually, or a version of that is why people run into problems in our groups and stuff, because they run up against people not being afraid to tell them to fuck off. No, that's not actually what Irishness is.
But they mean it kindly.
They mean well. They really do. But they're so invested in it that, you know, some of them, in fairness, a lot of our community at the Irish Pagan School will really, like, that's the first litmus test really for a lot of people, you know. Can you actually handle being, like, coming face to face with something that is
you make it sound like the Guardian at the gate.
This is why we get accused of gatekeeping all the time, because
I didn't mean gatekeeping in that sense.
No, I know you didn't. I know you didn't, but it is like in one sense we actually kind of do have to. It's just not what people are accusing us of or what they are projecting onto us, but it's like,
if people don't leave their illusions at the door, how can they come in and learn?
That's it. It's like you've got these boundaries and you have to walk them and make sure that they're protected and safe, right? But there is a gate and there is a doorway and there is a way in if you are agreeing to hospitality, which is actually what a lot of this comes down to. Like, we are offering hospitality as Irish people. We are offering hospitality within our tradition, our culture, this is not a closed practice.
Well, yeah, but guest right doesn't entitle you to come in and trash the house and put your feet on the furniture.
That's it. Exactly. You can't come in and redecorate, fuckers, you know. That's not how hospitality works, right?
Yeah, don't hang that fucking plastic leprechaun on my wall. It doesn't go.
There are rules of engagement that work both ways. So yes, we have to be respectful as hosts, but you also have to be respectful as a guest. And that's the kind of gatekeeping that I actively engage in, you know, and I will make no fucking apology for that, because hospitality is fundamental.
It hurts you when people accuse, from the outside, it appears to hurt you when people accuse you of hostility and gatekeeping and...
I
being
have
grumpy.
a very heightened sense of fairness, Pat. And I think that's really, it's not that it specifically hurts me, but it, like, as in, like, to be frank, like I have issues with human emotions at the best of times, right? So like, it's not like I'm getting triggered or traumatized or, you know, offended or anything like that, like, right? So it's not that, but it hurts me in that, like, I have a lot of pride and I put a lot of faith in my own sense of honor and honesty and fairness. And that is very, very important to me, both personally, but also as representative of, you know, as the lighthouse, as, you know, let's let's claim that shit, like, you know.
And
It's
to be willfully
important.
misunderstood by people for their own
Yes,
self-serving
yes,
reasons
that is
is
painful.
outrageous.
Yeah, that is painful, because it's, oh, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, I have kind of unrighteous in my head, but it's not right, like, it, you know. And as I said, like, it's all about right relationship with me, and that does work both ways, you know. So that, yeah, anyway, this is not about me, fuck off.
It is now. Bite me.
I should have known. I should have known. Okay, so the ominous question. This is the one everybody always has difficulty with.
Yeah.
Question 6. If you could guarantee that a person had read at least one book, so let's like stick it to one, right, before talking to you about paganism or asking for advice, what book would that be? So you got to pick one that's going to be like the most universally useful, like the thing that comes up time and time, the frequently asked question that will be solved by this book. It's a big ask.
Emer or Living with Honor.
I love her stuff. I actually love her stuff. And actually, mentioning ritual, she did a fantastic book on ritual.
It's actually sitting
pretty sure it's out of print.
right here. Ritual, a guide to life, love, and inspiration.
Yeah.
It's in my to be read pile, though, like so many other things. And
Read
it'll
it.
piss you off. It's 2 volumes below a book by Kathleen Matthews. Oh, do you know, actually, I thought about this last night. I actually thought about that one question. And what I had intended to say was Mark Williams, Ireland's Immortals.
Yes, yeah.
Which is fabulous.
Book. Yeah, that is a very good
but
book.
I blanked and Emer fell off the tip of my tongue.
That's okay. And Emer is a good choice. Like, again, you know, English Druidry, kind of well-meaning, little bit off the mark in some cases, and not understanding her own imperialism, and let's just call it what it is, right?
Yes, it is. But also a decent, proper, thoughtful animist, not in the primitive understanding of that. Primitive is so the wrong word for that. Not yes. Not what I meant is not in the sort of cheap, shallow understanding of it that's bandied around in internet definitions. No, but she's also vibrating with integrity.
Yes.
Yeah. You can feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. I met her many, many years ago. Yeah. She doesn't really do much these days. She actually contributed an article when we started the Pagan Digest. I managed to track her down, and she contributed an article, which was a bit of a feather in my cap, I have to say. But
I'm sure she'd say the same if you contributed an article to one of hers.
Yeah, no, I met her. I used to back in the day. I was involved with a group called the Children of Artemis, who run a website, or I haven't even looked it up lately. I'm presuming they still do, but they were witchcraft.org. So they ran Witchfest. I don't know, is that still running? It might be. But Dave and Kate, who were the head honchos at the time, became quite good friends of mine. There was a falling out afterwards. Anyway, but this was probably around the late 90s. So I would have been one of the main moderators, and at one point actually one of only 2 moderators on the witchcraft forums.
That's been fun. How many times did you get cursed?
That was intense. I went by the name Tall Chew back then, and people used to affectionately call me Chewy, because I had to frequently explain how Talchu was pronounced, and then other people thought that it was because I looked like Chewbacca, and that was how I got my nickname. So that was a whole thing. But, you know, shout out to anybody who knew Talchu back in the day. That was me. So, but yeah, I met Emma at one of their events, at one of the Witch Fest events in London. And she just, as you say, radiated integrity, you know, and my little 18, 19-year-old heart was much gladdened by conversation with her at that event, which she does not remember, I'm sure, but it had a big impact on me, and was kind of like I was very involved in the whole traditional Wicca thing and the whole OTO thing at the time, and it was the first time I'd met a Druid who didn't piss me off. And that's I'd met a lot of them. I mean, I stood in circle with Isaac Bonewitz when I was 18, and yes, I have stories about that because it was a skyclad ritual and I was an 18-year-old girl. So, you know, ask me about that over gin sometime. But
and if you don't want to recall it at any given time, that'll be fine too.
No, it was okay. Nothing happened, thankfully. But yeah, like I'd met a lot of like Druids at that point, and I don't think I ever met Philip, actually. I'm not sure if I met him in person. I think we were probably at the same events, but I don't think I ever sat down and had a conversation with him. But I definitely did with Emma, and I remember it being like, okay, well, maybe this whole fucking Druidry thing is not bad, because up until that point it was just fucking imperialist bullshit as far as I could see, you know, colonizer crap.
So, I think, you know, for me, it depends which you meet first from any given stream of paganism. Do you meet the ideology first, or do you meet the community first? I fell headfirst into a Druid community and fell absolutely in love with
the community
everybody.
At the time wasn't great, Pat. I have to say, it wasn't great. It really wasn't.
I will absolutely take your word for it. I wasn't there.
I hadn't met Philip, but I'd met a lot of people from a lot of Druid groups, and both online and in person at various events. Like I said, I was thrown headfirst at the age of 18. I was thrown headfirst into not just the national but the international pagan scene. Right?
Well, yeah, but hang on. Do you not find that pagans, almost any pagan community, and I'm going to exempt yours and I'm going to exempt OBOD, but I have seen kids come into paganism, and it's a bit of a feeding frenzy. Let me not even it is. Not just sexually, but that as well. But also be impressed by my ego.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, this is why I'm so fucking against the cult of ego, and this is why that's another thing that is very painful to me, when people accuse me of being like wanting to be front and center, or fucking be the pagan pope or whatever. That's actually a joke that John makes. Like, I'm going to be pagan pope.
That's okay. I think somebody else used to say that about Ray Sweeney, who also doesn't want to be the pagan pope. He kind of wants to be the pagan ninja, and he is.
That's fair. I'm very fond of Ray, I have to say.
Yeah, he's a cracking lad.
Yeah. But yeah, like the whole cult of ego, like I am working so fucking hard to like remove myself from the, you know, the Lora O'Brien brand is like fading into the background, while the Irish Pagan School as a platform for multiple voices is really what I'm trying to like leave as a legacy.
I mean, we've the efforts at rebranding have been really clear. I'm not sure that people are quite willing to let go of Mammy's apron strings.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. And in fairness, I think that there is still responsibilities there that I need to fulfill. I have definitely not been let off the hook with regard to my own roles and functions for priesthood. There is still some stuff that I need to build that I really don't want to build.
But seeing it as a move toward facilitation and legacy training and building up other people's voices, it's really obvious that that's what you've been doing with the brand. And actually, I think probably discussing your business strategy is way out of my purview. Sorry.
That's okay. I am an open book. Like that's one of the things about me. Like there's nothing fucking going on in the background that, you know, somebody hasn't heard of, probably in a fucking YouTube video. Like, you know. at some point, or some random Instagram post or something, you know. I'm not exactly one for secrets. But I work very hard for that kind of transparency, and because it brings accountability. And and to bring it back, Emma was one of my first examples of that within Druidry. So I do have a very soft spot for her for that reason.
And also the repatriation of human remains from museums.
Yes.
She was one of the leading forces behind that. Yeah. She's no more perfect than the rest of us, but she took some big steps to opening a lot of people's eyes to shameful practices.
Yeah, and especially at a time when it was really like she was a lone voice actually in that for, maybe not a lone voice, maybe that's not fair, but
well, no, but it was considered a freakish and weird thing to even consider. It's chilling now. I used to love going into the Pit Rivers in Oxford, which is a sort of anthropological museum of plundered colonial artifacts. But I adored it because it was a big mad Victorian collector's cabinet of cultural influences, including shrunken heads.
Yeah,
we had people's ancestors there, and
I know
used to go and look at them for diversion.
I know.
I'm not proud of that.
I know. Well, yeah, but when we know better, we do better.
Yeah.
So yeah, Emma is amazing. That ritual book needs to go to the top of your pile, because you specifically said earlier that you're not good at ritual. You have the resources there. Get on that, right?
Okay. I'll bump it up the pile a bit.
Bump it up.
I'm good at solitary ritual. I'm terrible at group rituals. So yes, it can go up the pile.
Yeah. And a lot of that is just practical experience. And in fairness, like, if you really don't learn that shit until you start to lead it, like you can learn all the theory you want, which is important to have. Definitely, it's important to have the theory. But until you actually run into the inevitable fuck ups, that's how you really learn.
See, this is the problem with my learning style. Learning style theory is outdated, but I learn by teaching, which is really rough on my first couple of classes for anything.
Yeah, no, I would be very similar actually. And I refer you back to me getting thrown in at the deep end, and thankfully having that kind of safe space and mentorship and sounding boards and all the rest of it. I was very, very blessed. I know a lot of people that was not their first group experience at all in any way, and I feel like somebody had my fucking back like all the way through, throwing me into situations. Now, often off the fucking deep end of the swimming pool in complete fairness, and I just had to learn to sink or swim, but yeah, like looking back, I have definitely been put in situations, like for a fucking 18-year-old from Ireland, like I've been put in situations where I have had amazing experiences that have really added up, like again become all those threads in this tapestry that has led us to where we are today.
So when are you going to write the book on resilience?
That's our conference topic for this year, actually, resilience. And I'm wondering, I know I said no teaching, right? But we're still technically in 2021, so I could do a talk on how to do the work when you're not able. I have a YouTube video on it, and seeing as how I am going through burnout currently and trying to recover from burnout, and like getting caught in the loop of burnout because I keep putting things on my list that I've already taken off my list. Case in point. I don't know, this is like burnoutception right here. I'm kind of tying myself up in knots. Anyway, resilience is a thing.
And it can be cultivated.
Yes,
it can be nurtured.
It can. I think it is something that is like on the outskirts of everything that I teach, but I certainly have not center staged it enough. Like
COVID has center staged it for everybody.
No, it really has. One of the best things to come out of COVID for me has been the Live at 5 sessions, actually, that we started running through the Irish Pagan School. So it's like a free Zoom session basically at 5 p.m. We were, when the first lockdown happened in March 2020. Is it that long ago? Yes, it is. We did a daily session at 5 p.m. every day as part of our priesthood responsibilities, really.
Oh.
Yeah, we started doing a daily session for about an hour, not teaching sessions specifically. It was like social space, sharing, safe space, you know, community space, basically. And I think we ran it every day, myself and John, for 2.5 months, almost 3 months. And then we moved it to Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And it has run every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday since then.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's just like there's links, you know, you can sign up. If you're on the mailing list, you'll get links every so often. Just if you want to sign up, it's a specific thing, and you just get invites then 3 times a week. And if you want to join in, you can, and people can just join in and just listen if they want to. A lot of people just kind of have it on in the background just for a bit of company, you know.
Yeah.
But like as far as kind of priesthood or you know, being a druid or whatever, like the pastoral side of things, the pastoral care, like that has been something that we could do, and it's something I'm very, very proud of. And actually currently John has a much more active role in it than I do, for, you know, obvious reasons, because I get people out very, very fast. And I just don't have it in me to do that kind of social engagement on any kind of a regular basis. Unfortunately, I would love to be able to, but I just physically can't. But we have moderators who run the sessions, and like I said, John manages it, but they do a lot of the work, you know, and it's just the most, I mean, talk about community, like it's just the most amazing thing to witness, like, you know, and I kind of join
That's
in
because
every
you've
so
built a
often.
good team around you, which is an exercise in discernment in itself.
I can't take credit for that, like they just showed up, you know, like just, I
Yeah,
mean,
but if you'd been a wanker, they wouldn't have stayed.
no, true. They give, we give them guidance, and again, we try and kind of set up the space to be as safe as it can be on the internet, you know. Obviously we're just a group of strangers on the internet ultimately, like, although in fairness, we've had relationships start out of that. We've had a couple of couples now who have started in Live
Okay,
at
so
5.
this is basically the Lora O'Brien dating school.
No. No. Oh, gods, no.
Oh, come on. Did you never ever want to be one of what do you call them? The marriage broker women?
The
The
matchmakers.
matchmakers, yeah.
Listune Varna Matchmaking Festival almost ran this year. I don't know if it ran, but it is an Irish tradition, you know, in fairness.
It is.
All the fairs
I
and
know
festivals.
some farmers with 2 tractors who would be good matches for
Yeah,
anyone out there that's looking.
Yeah. If you know, if the Irish Pagan School ever goes tits up, that could be a career choice. You know? Don't knock it till you've tried it. I'm sure I'd be very good at it, you know.
Holy God.
Which one? Because I don't
All
think
of them and none
Morrigan
of them.
would have anything to do with that. Actually.
Oh my God.
Actually, I'm sure she'd fucking love to have something to do with that, but that would be a bad idea. Let's file that under
really
bad
would.
ideas.
Much as I'm sure you have strong opinions about the way the Morrigan was written in the Iron Druid series, there are some particular scenes that are coming back to mind.
Let's if we ever go down that road, let's go with the Dagda here. His cauldron is here on the shelf. I don't know if you can see it there behind me, but let's leave that in the Dagda's purview, or maybe Angus Og, in fairness, although he wasn't great at it. I know we call him the love god, but he wasn't actually great at the whole love thing. He was great at the falling in love part, but not so much the management of relationships,
the making it work out part. Yeah. No, I think most people would be perfectly cheerful with a good bit of Dagda energy.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, we're just setting the world to rights, Pat, aren't we? We've.
You are gonna have to edit this because we've been chatting.
I'm not editing.
This is just you and me chatting.
This is. I told you that's what it was going to be.
Fair enough. Well, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it too, and hopefully people will, you know. And if they don't, fuck them. They're not our people.
Them. Away and feck.
They probably haven't lasted this long. So if you've lasted this long and you're enjoying the conversation, you're part of the tour now. Sorry, I don't make the rules. You're in. Join in the live at 5. You'll be grand. So Or, you know, join OBOD because Pat says that they're great. So like, you don't have to join my crew. You can join Pat's crew.
There's no way you would ever recommend that to anyone. I love it. Everybody can find their own way.
Everybody can find their own way.
You don't limit yourself to one particular path and you read around, you'll find where you need to be.
Which is what I was trying to, you know, encompass. It's not, I do not preach this fucking one true way bullshit. Like, you know, like I said, there are people who are in our tour who are our people, and like it's very, very clear once you have any kind of engagement with the Irish Pagan School or anything to do with any of the Facebook groups or the mailing list or the Live at 5 or this YouTube channel or anything, it's very, very clear to people whether we're going to be for them or not. And if we're not, then fair enough. Like, we wish you well and go and find somebody else who is, like, you know, because spirituality.
And to be fair, you never fall out with people on the basis of ideology, because, well, you and I don't agree about shed loads of stuff.
Yeah.
We manage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's really where, you know, I mean, the one kind of caveat I would put on that is stuff that, like, the stuff that we disagree on is not harming anyone.
Oh God, no.
Yeah,
I know would automatically exempt racism and
I know
transphobia.
Unfortunately, we're in this day and age where we need to fucking spell that out, you know, and we need to be very, very clear. Like, if you're a Nazi, you're going to get punched in the face, and that's just the way it is. We do not agree to disagree with racism or, you know, misogyny or any of that bullshit.
My folks came to this country to get away from it. If it crops up here, I'm going to step on it.
Yes.
Well, okay, there's a lot of it in the north, but I'm stepping as hard as I can. I just need to.
You are one person, and you are doing your best, and I know you are. So yeah, we deal with what's in front of us, and that's all anybody can do, you know. So so question 7. Is this the last one? I think it might be the last one. What advice do you wish someone had given you that you would like to give people starting out with Irish heritage? And this
easy,
actually,
huge.
Go.
Don't be afraid of the language.
Good advice.
Because I remember growing up, and I was the type of kid, I fell headfirst into Greek mythology, into Norse mythology. I loved it. Irish mythology, and then the names, and I didn't know how to say any of them. And there were all these words that I couldn't say. And I had guilt and fear. And I was 45 before I knowingly met anyone who could speak Irish. Yeah, because in my part of the north, it's not a thing. We have like Anfablacht, Chucky Arla, and Pogue Mahone. Yeah. And they're all words that belong to elsewhere.
Those
a quick Irish language class or a YouTube video. God, if only those had been available.
I know. And that was actually the number one pushback I got from my first book in 2004, was that I was shoving the language down people's throats, and you didn't have to learn Irish to be Irish paganism or to be involved in Irish paganism. And I actually agree. You don't have to learn the entire fucking language, but you do need to be at least passing familiar with it, you know, because the stories, the names, the lore, it's all important. But also,
take away that fear factor.
Yeah. That is so complicated though, Pat, because like, so you have your situation obviously where there's a lot involved in like whether you speak Irish or not, right? That's a whole fucking thing in itself, right? But even here, there has been so much, again, like bed into us ancestrally, over generations about how shameful it is to speak Irish, you know, as a barbarian tongue and as a language that will never get you anywhere, as a, you know, quote unquote dead language, as a useless language, as a you know, and then like with the Republican movement and everything, it became this kind of elitism thing where
even Monken McGann, who is a grand Irish speaker, said that for a while he was estranged from Irish because his granny taught it to him as a bullet to shoot at the English.
Yes.
And he didn't want to relate to a language on that
yes.
basis.
Yeah.
But then he discovered massive riches at 32 words for field.
Yeah.
It's another candidate for a book that everyone should read.
Fantastic book.
Book.
The Mother Folklore podcast.
Yes.
And books. There's 2 books in Mother Folklore. And that's not a curse word, by the way. Folklore is the Irish word for dictionary. So it's FOCLO fada IOR. So
it's
just in case, I know people, Mother Folklore. That's obviously why they chose it. Like, we do love our puns.
Yes.
And if they can be, cross-linguistic, then all the better. But yeah, no, there's so many fucking amazing resources now that and we run a class at the Irish Pagan School, a whole like learn the Irish language, introduction to the Irish language. So you can go and take that. You can take Deirdre Wadding's class that we mentioned earlier. I don't know how often it's offered or whatever, but you can. How do we actually contact Deirdre? I should probably.
Well, I can. You have her email address, I'm certain, but
yes.
I can give it to you.
There's a website. No, I have her. I have. Yeah, no, I have her email and her phone number. I mean, for like, I don't want to put that out on the internet.
That would make more sense.
Deirdre, I am not going to give people your personal phone number and email address, just for the record.
Currasush. If you Google Deirdre Wadding Currasush, COIRE, new word SOIS.
Yes,
you will find her website online.
Yeah. No, that's definitely worth looking up. And again, like nothing to do with us.
Sorry, I forgot we weren't just having a personal chat.
Yeah, that's fine. There's some strange people on the internet, Pat.
Oops. Yeah.
Friends don't give friends phone numbers out. Yeah, no, I know. But yeah, like there's resources. There's so many YouTube channels now. There's a wee lass up in Donegal. I don't know if you've ever come across her stuff. I post it fairly regularly. Sugar, what's it called? I can't remember, but she does like Northern Irish stuff, but it's like, I mean,
is that like Claire does Ulster Irish?
No,
it's not.
She's a very young woman. Sugar, it's gone. Anyway, I'm sure I have a blog post.
Another fantastic way to learn is song lyrics.
Yes.
I mean, Keela, start off by learning the lyrics to Be On and the translation, and it'll give you any number of useful phrases.
Yeah.
And then it's not the style of music I was reared with, and I am slow to learn to enjoy it, but there's a woman called Porrigina Ulahan who does Oriel songs from the, that lost tradition of South Armagh and
there's like Shannos almost,
like Shannos singing. She's got a marvelous song called Banu, just blessing, which is just an invocation to 19 goddesses across Ireland that she did during COVID. If you learn that, you've got some very useful ritual toolkit in there.
Absolutely. Even stuff like O Roche de Vahawalia.
Yes.
Like learning the lyrics, like it's a cliche, it's a classic, but it's a classic for
Sing
a
it on your way
reason,
home when you're tipsy.
Get the Granuaile version, like, and you're in with an almost pagan winner there.
God, I remember sitting the first time I heard Koch Brannigan sing a song in Irish, unaccompanied at the night court at Three Castles at the Grove. It's one of those magical moments that sticks in your mind.
Yeah, it really is. Our language was made for poetry and song, and it's really where you feel the magic of it. Like,
well, I got one of my Protestant ex-boyfriends by the scruff of the neck last year, and I marched him round Newtonards because he swore blind he'd never speak a word of Irish. That hill, what you call it, Scrabo, Irish for the stony place. That wee scummy housing estate where you live, Mavilla, Irish for the plain of the sacred tree. And you can walk around the town and just the place names. And it re-enchants the town for you when you can see it through that lens.
The place names are so important. I actually started on this very channel, if somebody wants to go and look up the playlist, I started doing an accessibility reading of the Dinhenicus, the lore of place names. you know, and again, it's been the thread that's run through this entire conversation, you know, and it really kind of hammers home the point that I do make in that series, where like the reason that I'm doing that, like as a labor of love, like I did the Thon on my Lora O'Brien channel, you know, I read through the whole Thon.
I remember, I was well impressed.
Yeah. And I was fishing around for something to do, and I was like, this is the context and the connection that people need, you know, because even though we're just talking about the place names, like there's so many different people and pronunciations and, you know, obviously the place names themselves and the stories behind them. And like, I mean, we started with Tara, there's like fucking 5 Tara poems. Like, are we, you know, overcompensating here? I don't know. Tara, you know, Rathcrohan is better, I'm just saying. But anyway, we'll get there, I'm sure. I'm biased. We have in this household, we have a whole Tara versus Rathcrohan, because Tara is John's place and Rathcrohan is mine. So I'm a little bit.
Well, Tara is a tad more phallic, so.
Yeah, Tara just got better publicity, I'm just saying. Dinyanika's case in point.
Fair enough.
But anyway, archaeologically, you know, we could definitely make a case for either. But I am doing my duty and reading those Tara poems to the best of my ability, because the language is so important. The place names are so important. Shane Broderick actually has a fantastic class at the Irish Pagan School on the place names of Ireland, and like the, you know, he's a medieval folklorist, and it's just the context that it gives you. I mean, we feel the pull, and even people outside of Ireland feel the pull to the places, you know, and feel the connection if they manage to walk the land here. But it's so important to have the context for that, you know, and to see how our ancestors were relating to that. And, you know, that's how we make those authentic connections. So I just want to make that as accessible as possible for people. And, you know,
yes,
I'm a helpful sort. I'm there, you know, standing by that gate, opening the fucking gate at every opportunity, like for anybody who wants to walk through it. But yeah.
And all they have to do is, yeah. But if they can ground themselves in Ireland a bit, in the real Ireland of mucky fields and ordinary human lives, not in some mythical Ireland of, you know, trailing fairy glitter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then that's where it starts.
Yeah. No, definitely. And that's the foundations, like that is the fundamentals. And wherever you are on this wonderful earth that we call home, you can do that. You know, you can do it. We've talked about maps, we've talked about Google Earth, we've talked about, you know, the lore of place names, we've talked about walking the land. We haven't talked about like journeying and all that, but you can actually connect that way as well through guided meditations or journeys that are specific to Ireland. Again, whole classes at the Irish Pagan School, free classes at the Irish Pagan School about that. Because it's so important, you know, and it is so important for people to be able to access that kind of connection wherever you are, because there's a lot of people who can't physically make it here, you know, who may not be able to kind of, for whatever reason, sit down and learn a new language, right? We get that, and we're not saying that
a lot of people aren't able-bodied enough or rich enough to make the trip.
Exactly.
But they don't, well, they can't do it physically.
Exactly. They might have like responsibilities like children or elder people that they need to take care of, you know, that they physically can't make those trips. Again, you know, if you have 3 kids under fucking 5, it's very difficult to think about sitting down and learning a new language. Like you're not in a place in your life where you can do that, but you can put a song on YouTube, you know, you can have it in the background, you can have that informing your, like, again, it's that essence, it's that what can you do to connect wherever you are, from wherever you are, what can you do to connect, you know? And that's all I think any of us would like to see, you know.
I think one of the best ways for me learning the mythology was telling the stories to my bestie's kids.
Yeah, no, definitely. Can't wait to start telling my grandkids stories.
That's amazing.
So, anything else that you'd like to share? That was our last question. It was a good one. It was a good one.
It was a good one. We haven't stuck to any of the questions.
No, we started
So,
there
yeah,
and maybe loop back a little bit.
meandered. I can't think of anything except have fun with it.
Yeah.
It's not a solemn duty. It's not an imposition. It should make your heart lift.
Yes.
And put a grin on your face.
Yeah. 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 If it's a chore, it's not your spirituality, it's your job, you know. And for some of us it can be a bit of a job, but that's about, you know, contracts and all the rest of it. But it doesn't have to be that way, you know. You can engage, as I said, you can engage and connect from wherever you are. And
it's a G.K. Chesterton quotation I keep in the front of my Druid journal. That sounds very impressive. Let your religion be less of a theory and more of a love affair.
Oh, wow.
Fucking do it with passion.
Oh, wow.
No one wants to go to bed with somebody who's going through the motions because they have to.
I love that.
Yeah?
Yeah. I love that. I have no idea who G.K. Chesterton is, you know, showing my ignorance. But
he was an old English dude, and he was a serious Catholic. But he was, he's a good writer. He's a witty writer, and he got it right there.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Tackle it with passion.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice for anybody, I think. Oh,
right. You're knackered. Look at you.
I am tired. Yes, I am. It's been a long day, but that's okay. Yeah. I have really enjoyed this. And in fairness, like, as much as I've enjoyed it, it is still social engagement for me. And I am, as I you know, I refer you back to that whole extreme introvert thing. It does wear me out. It is nothing personal.
I know. I hope you have a quiet fireside with another glass of gin awaiting you.
Although depending on the time, it might be bedtime. I'm trying to focus on my sleep right now. The burnout is real.
Oh, I have 8.5 hours tomorrow hooked up to a headset, letting lots of trainees shout at me. Oh. That was agony for the first year.
Oh, love.
No, I've built the resilience since then. Yeah.
But and I know you're good at it.
No, I'm mostly abusive and slightly comical, but they kind of learn in the end anyway.
That's why you're good at it. That's why you're good at it.
Really good.
So the obligatory end slide, if people want to support our community work, you can do that through patreon.com/Irish Pagan School. That is just, you know, you can sign up. There is a 10% discount if you want to like avail of classes and stuff, but you can also just sign up and just support the resources that we create and the work that we do within the community. So, or the wider community, I suppose. So I just want to thank Pat. I did offer to, you know, promote anything that Pat had going, but Pat's website is to be announced. So once it is available, wherever you're watching this in the future, you can maybe look down, and if there's something about Ulster and Druidry, then there might be, that would be Pat's website. And I'm sure, well, actually, Pat has guest posted on my blog at loraobrien.ie, and it is an amazing post on Northern Ireland. So you can definitely go and look that up as well. I'll actually link that below just so you can hear Pat's voice, because I never wanted to be the one who was speaking about situations that I'm not directly involved in.
You are not too big to go over my knee. Well, technically you might be.
But sorry, I grew up with Ian Paisley. Come on.
Oh, never.
Yes, hearing him on the TV.
God.
So, you know, some things just stick in your brain. What can I say? So anyway, yeah, Pat has done an amazing blog post over there, and I'm sure that when Pat's website is available, that will be even more of the amazingness. So for now, I will put Pat's blog post down below, and as soon as it's available, I will update the, not show notes, but the thing down below on the YouTube.
What's it?
Yes. And you can see for yourself how amazing Pat is. So Gurmahagat, thank you so much for your time and your energy and for the work that you do, because you are a leading light in a lot of Celtic paganism groups on the internet currently. And I really appreciate it anytime you weigh in.
I only do it so that you don't have to do it all the time. You know that.
Yeah, and we'd love to see you in Live at 5 or, you know, any of the Irish Pagan School stuff if you ever wanted to get involved there. It would be cool.
I shall pop by and generally tease people, gently and in a safe space kind of way.
Love it. That's how you know that we're real friends, is because we slag each other. That's just the way it is.
That's how Irish people do it.
Yep.
I only compliment you when I really want to make you squirm.
Yeah, no, I know.
And it works so well. I'm never forgetting that technique.
So thank you very much, and we will end it.
Thanks, Laura.
Slán.